Hey, Renter Retires. It's Adam Schroeder here with another episode, joined as usual by Zach Lemaster, the founder and CEO of Renter Retirement. And we have got our cost seg expert, Steve, with us today. You're going to see Zach get really excited because we're going to talk about the OBBTB, not the one big beautiful bill, but the one big beautiful tax break that has come back to investors. So, Steve, thanks for joining us again on the show. And let's talk a little bit about obviously, we want to touch a little bit on cost segs just to remind people what it is, but then what was in this bill that kind of rechanged the game, I guess you could say. Changed it back to now we're partying like it's, what year was it that it started? 2018 or something like that?
2017. Yeah. So you want to start with cost seg and kind of go over the cost seg
brief
first?
Overview of what it is.
Cost seg is basic accelerated depreciation. Typically, you put your properties, which you guys typically do in residential, so we'll talk about that. So the typical schedule when you buy properties, you deduct the land, which is 15% or so in that range, and then you take the balance of the asset and divide it by 27 and a half years, you get your annual deduction, which typically covers a lot of your positive cash flow, things of that nature, which is certainly a good benefit. But accelerated depreciation through cost seg, what we do is we go in an engineering study and we break the property down and pull out the 5-year property, which is typically the interior items, cabinets, flooring, fixtures, plumbing fixtures, carpeting, things like that, that have a shorter life. So we pull those out, and then we go to the outside, which is a 15-year property. That's typically your driveways, retaining walls, landscaping, sprinkler systems, things like that also have a shorter life. So we bring the 5 and the 15-year forward, and that's anywhere from 25 to 35% of the basis, which is the purchase price or purchase and renovations less land. And it's gone higher than that. In fact, I've done something for Zach that's done quite well. It depends on the property. But that's a good conservative estimate. So the first thing that we do, and with any customers, we do an estimate. So you can take a look at the numbers, have something to base your decision on. Because at the end of the day, you're swapping dollars. You're paying for the report, and what's my benefit? So if you're spending $1 and saving 10, it kind of makes sense. If you're spending $1 and saving 2, it may or may not make sense. So that's why we do the estimate, so the client can get an idea of what the benefit, how it may benefit them. So that's kind of cost seg in a nutshell.
Steve, go ahead.
Good. I was going to say, so what was the issue that we were running into that made them actually include it in the tax bill? If you could run it through a little bit about kind of what has been happening the last few years and what's in the bill now.
Sure. In September 2017, that's when they enacted the 100% bonus depreciation. And they've had bonus depreciation throughout the years, 50%, 75%, 25%, just depends. But this bill, which was Trump's first tax bill in 2017, introduced it, and from September 2017 to December 31st of 2022, it was 100% bonus depreciation, which is a great benefit for investors, as we all know. Starting in 2023, it went to 80%, and then 60, and then 24, it was 40, and 2025, it went to 40. So the bill, starting January 20th of 2025, is 100% bonus depreciation again, all the way through 2029. We don't know what's going to happen. It's not showing to phase out at that point over time like it did at the other. It's just going to stop. And my guess is there'll probably be another bill that's going to address it, and we'll see what happens. But for now, we've got a nice run for everybody that purchases or puts in service from January 2025 through 2029. It's going to be a big benefit for everyone. And I mentioned a key word there, which is called the in-service date. For example, I bought a short-term rental in a lake house for ourselves, and we do it for short-term rentals also in December, but I renovated it, and we just finished it. So my in-service date, it's not the date I purchased, which was 2029. 2024. I bought it specifically to close in 2024 in case this didn't come through. I'd at least be locked in at 60. But now I'm going to put it in service now, so I get the 2025 100% bonus depreciation. So if someone buys a property, say January the 2nd, but they don't put it in service until January 20th, then they'll be at the 100%. If they put it in service January 2nd, they'll be at the 40%.
In service,
meaning
when you're like renting it out, right? Not necessarily when you buy it, but when you're actually, applying it as a rental or investment property.
Yeah, putting it into service. Yeah.
Steve, you just covered a lot of nitty-gritty detail. You may have lost some people talking about 5 and 15-year depreciation. I want to get on my soapbox for a second, if you both will allow me, and I want to review what you said, maybe a little bit more in layman terms, and I also want to talk about how this is applicable to the average person, for the average investor from tax savings, because this is a big deal, regardless of your political standpoint, regardless of what other things are included in the bill. That doesn't matter for this. What we're talking about right now is something that is extremely beneficial for all real estate investors and something you should absolutely consider using. And if you can't do it this year or today, be forward thinking. This is through 2029. And so think about how you can strategically plan to do this in the future, because this piece is hands down the most beneficial tax incentive for real estate investing that I have seen during my time, and has made a huge impact for me and allowed us to dramatically grow our portfolio. I think better than the 1031, but it's used in hand with the 1031, because when you sell a property, depreciation is recapturable, but you can 1031 and keep kicking that can down the road, possibly in perpetuity, right? So this isn't about like even deferred, deferred depreciation or deferred dollar. This is possibly never paying these dollars in tax, potentially, if you set it up right. Now, none of us are CPAs or attorneys. We're not giving tax advice. Speak with your CPA. We have excellent CPAs we work with that are real estate specific. We'd be happy to pass those referrals on to you. But just big picture, and I want to go through a couple of math examples. So as you mentioned, Steve, on residential real estate, you depreciate your property over 27 and a half years. That means if you buy a $100,000 property, and I'm ignoring the taking the land out, that's a small piece of this, but say $100,000 of property, like improved value that you buy. Normally over 27 and a half years, that would be roughly like $33 or $3.3 thousand per year, right? So $3,300 per year that you get reduced, you take as depreciation. Now, for the average everyone does this regardless. And IRS requires you to do this, actually. And so you take this off of your passive income. What accelerated depreciation does is take a portion of that, and you said 25 to 35%, Steve, and we use about 30% for our napkin math, which is right in the middle of that range. In fact, looking back over the studies that you've done for me, and you've done studies for me every single year over the past 7 years, and I'll be doing a lot more this year now. I've never had one that's been as low as 30%. My highest one, I think, has been like 44%. So it's been dramatic. It's property dependent, right? But what that means is that 27 and a half year depreciation, you're taking a percentage of it in year one. Anyone can do this. Where it becomes really advantageous is where you can take that depreciation and offset it against your active income. Hey everyone, it's Zach Lemaster, CEO of Rent to Retirement, the nation's leading turnkey investment company. Over 800 of our investors have already joined the Rent to Retirement Academy, where they've learned how to buy their first or next investment properties in 90 days or less. Academy members are averaging 4 properties per year using creative strategies to fast-track financial freedom. We teach you everything you need to know to be a successful investor from A to Z, including private lending, short-term note strategies, how to protect your assets, how to maximize tax benefits, everything you need to know to help you maximize your returns across the board. Plus, Academy members become immediate referral partners where you earn up to $1,000 per property that your referrals buy for life on every investment property purchase from all of your referrals. Last year, we paid over $160,000 to our top Academy referral partner. Our Academy enrollment is closing after the next 20 signups, and right now there's an exclusive 50% discount only available for the next 5 days. So to learn how you can join our exclusive Academy program today to fast track your success, click the link below and we'll see you on the inside. For those of you who have high passive income on a property, it may make sense to do this even if you're not taking it against your active income, right? If you don't have mortgage expenses and all the write-offs, and it may make sense for you to do that regardless. Or we also know, and we've covered this in other videos, that if you make $150,000 or less, like you can actually, and it's phased out from 100 to 150, you can actually take a portion of that against your active income, and you get, I think, up to a $25,000 tax deduction or something along those lines. Don't quote me exactly on that. Speak with your CPA, but just know, like, I'm here to spark, nuggets of, or, thought process on how you could potentially apply this. But anyone can do a cost segregation and accelerate the depreciation. And where it makes the most sense, where this becomes the most beneficial, is if you can qualify as a real estate professional or use a short-term loophole to take that accelerated depreciation against your active income. We've had many people that have done this. If you're a full-time real estate investor, if you're an agent, if you're working full-time and your spouse is working part-time or stay at home, maybe they're your real estate professional. We've had a lot of people that have bought new construction assets and they've self-managed them for the first year. And then because that's the year you're putting it into service. And then the following year, the next year, you can turn it over to a management team. There's lots of different ways. Again, work with your CPA. But if you're motivated to do this, there's a path for you to do it. And we're willing to assist. But this can be powerful. So let's say you buy $1 million worth of real estate. And let's say we're using napkin math, 30% of that value you're going to take of the depreciation on the property, which is ultimately $1 million over 27 and a half years. You're just taking, say, 30% of it in year one. So that would be $300,000, where you can take a $300,000 deduction in year one to offset. And that's again, RE Pro status or short-term rental loophole. You can take that against all income. So if you have investment income, if your spouse has W-2, whatever the case is, that's significant. And the math has really worked out for me dramatically over the years, because my goal every single year, and I've said this many times, is to buy as much real estate as I can and to ideally buy enough real estate where I create a negative loss every single year that actually carries forward into the next year. And Steve can attest, I've been able to do that in a lot of cases. Using leverage, when you use leverage, this becomes really exciting, because if you're going to buy $1 million worth of real estate and you're putting your typical 20% down, that's $200,000 to possibly get a $300,000 tax deduction. If it comes in at 30%, possibly more. Like I said, most of mine have come in between 35 to 44% is the highest I've had. We can take it even a step further with some of our investors, where we have loans where people can put 5% down, and if you use some of your builder credits that we offer with our exclusive relationships with builders that we're able to make available to investors, you can get 5 to 10% of the property back at cash at closing. So that means, in theory, in a lot of cases, and we've had people do this, you can buy property with 5% down, possibly 0% down, or anywhere from 0 to 20% down, to create hundreds of thousands of dollars of tax deductions. And that's extremely powerful, because that is money you would otherwise give to Uncle Sam and never see. But now you have that money in cash, or you get a refund from the IRS to buy more real estate, to have additional tax deductions, and you get this snowball effect. So this has been the single most important thing for me to dramatically grow my portfolio. And this has been crucial in, retiring my wife and I in our professional career path. Now, there's a lot of things that you need to be aware of on this, especially, do you qualify for real estate professional? Okay, if you can't today, how do you plan for that in the future? Are you using the short-term loophole? Like, all those things are really important, but we're here to help guide you through it. But it's super, super important, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But between the year to this year, or 2025 through 2029, that's 4 years for you to make some extremely powerful moves from a tax perspective. So that's my soapbox, you guys. This is just something that has worked significantly for my wife and I to grow our portfolio, and something I'm very excited to talk about. So I'll stop there. Adam, Steve, any additional thoughts on that? I mean, let me stop talking.
Yeah, I want to touch. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned CPA, and it's critical that you have a good real estate CPA, and I would take advantage of the ones you guys have, because you've vetted them and you know who they are. I've had so many people, their CPA come back, and I'm not knocking CPAs. A lot of them just don't understand cost segregation, how it works. They come back and with things that don't even make sense, and concurs them not to do a cost segregation for all sorts of reasons that aren't valid. But I've never had that with a CPA that understands real estate. So it's important that, and I welcome the CPA to be a part of our conversation when I start with a new client, because I want the CPA to be involved, and because they're going to be doing the taxes and they need to understand it, and they know their client's tax position. So it's just critical. I just want to stress that you get a CPA that really understands real estate. Otherwise, you could be steered the wrong direction.
Attention landlords. Are you prepared for this year's peak rental season? If not, AVAIL is here to help you succeed. With AVAIL's comprehensive rental analysis reports, you can set a competitive price informed by detailed market analysis, including pricing trends and local demand. Find great renters quickly through easy-to-create online listings that are syndicated to 20 top rental websites. Review prospective tenants' applications online and screen instantly with TransUnion credit reports, background checks, and eviction history, all at your fingertips. Need a lease? AVAIL offers lawyer-reviewed templates specific to your state, ready to be signed online. Plus, streamline your rent collection by accepting payments through your tenant's preferred methods, ensuring everyone stays on track. Make 2025 your best rental year yet. Visit avail.co/rent to retirement today and get AVAIL Unlimited Plus for free for your first month. That's avail.co/rent to retirement. Looking for a smarter, more reliable way to grow your wealth? Then look no further than BAM Capital. With a proven track record of success, BAM Capital focuses on providing opportunities that target prioritizing reliable cash flow, long-term capital preservation, and high-quality asset management. Their Midwest-focused strategy is built on intelligent, data-driven decisions, leveraging market insights to maximize return potential while reducing risk. Whether you're looking to diversify your portfolio or secure stable passive income potential, BAM Capital offers the tools and expertise to help you take control of your financial future. Don't let opportunities pass you by. Visit bamcapital.com/RTR to learn more. That's bamcapital.com/RTR. So you talked about the in-service date being January 20th or later, but I think one of the things people need to remember is there a time limit on, if I put something into service today, is there a time limit before I can't go back and claim my accelerated depreciation, or is it something that people can do, 10 years from now if they really wanted to?
Well, I've come across folks that have never depreciated their property before, and they're 3 years in. And so that's a CPA question, a tax question, which I don't really want to dive off into that, but I've seen that happen. And of course, you're required to depreciate. And if you don't depreciate, it's my understanding that they're going to, and you sell the property, they're going to depreciate it for you. Although you didn't get the benefit. Again, I don't want to jump into CPA shoes because I'm not a CPA, obviously, but it is critical that you do it. But I don't know the answer to how far back you can go. But it does.
You can do a cost tag on a house you bought. In 2028, you could do a cost tag on a house that you bought this year.
Oh, I thought you were asking the question, but yes, you could. I give people that have bought a house in 2022 that still have their normal depreciation. We go do a cost segregation on that now. Yes, you can do that now.
I think the point that Adam's getting to is that, let's say you determine that you can't qualify for a real estate professional, and we've done extensive episodes on this. Adam will post some of those links in the show notes below where we have interviewed our CPAs to provide guidance on that of, what is material participation? How do you get 750 hours? What is a short-term loophole? How do you do that? So there's been extensive discussion around that. I think the point that Adam's making is that even if you decide that you can't qualify for that this year, it still makes sense to buy a property and put it into service this year, because you say next year, if you can't qualify, you can still take the 100% bonus depreciation next year on a property that you put into service this year, as long as it's after January 20th. So that could still be very beneficial. And so I would encourage everyone. And I'm always a big proponent of buy real estate all the time, right? And I've never taken a year off, regardless of what the market's doing, what's happening in the economy and the news. There's always something, who knows what's going to happen in the future. But this tax advantage to real estate, there's nothing like it, guys, especially when you use leverage. And so this has, again, been the single most powerful thing for us to really grow our portfolio dramatically, because taxes is the biggest expense all of us are going to have always. So, it still makes sense to buy and plan for the future, even if you can't use it this year.
Looking for a smarter way to manage your rentals? With HEMLANE, you get everything you need to self-manage without giving up your time and peace of mind. Thanks to your partnership with Rent to Retirement, you can advertise on top sites like Zillow, Apartments.com, and more, automate rent collection and lease tracking, and access 24/7 repair coordination and support services. Whether you're just getting started or scaling your portfolio, HEMLANE grows with you. And right now, rent-to-retirement investors get 25% off for 2 months when you subscribe onto the platform using the link in the show notes. Hey investors, in this market, the right financing can make or break your next deal. That's why Rent-to-Retirement teamed up with BLUPRINT Home Loans to give you exclusive access to investor-friendly loans. You can get rates in the low fives, fast pre-approvals, flexible DSCR short-term rental and portfolio loans, cash-out refi strategies to help you scale, and more. If you want to close faster, cash flow stronger, and build smarter, connect with the BLUPRINT Investor team today. Call 888-343-1043 or go to the link in the show notes.
So Adam, was that the point you were trying to make? Is that it's still worth buying today so you can use it in future years?
Absolutely. Get it into service so you can work towards becoming a real estate professional. Because we tell people all the time, if you're not one now, eventually you're going to want somebody on your taxes to be a real estate professional, right? And then you can go back and deal with the tax stuff later. But getting doors under your belt is how you get, first off, to the real estate professional status. And then you can look back in the past and make sure it works.
100%, because that I don't want anyone. This is something that every single person can use, if not today, in the future. And I would encourage every single person, because this is dramatically significant. And even if you don't have significant tax liability this year, like we have a lot of business owners, they're like, well, I don't pay any taxes this year. It's like, well, you're probably accruing some taxes that you will pay in the future, whether it's capital gains or something. Like, you can use this. You can also do it now and pay it forward. Those tax losses you don't lose them. So there's also like tax loss banking that you can use for future years. So this is a key piece that I think everyone should think about including. And if you can't qualify for real estate professional, or you don't want to go the short-term loophole this year, then that's something that you still should think about, consider buying properties to help you move closer to being able to qualify for that. And if you are someone that is very motivated to use it this year, and you haven't bought any property yet, there's a high likelihood you probably could. That probably means self-managing. It possibly is a short-term rental to get those hours. But look, where there's a way, or where there's a will, there's a way, right? So we have HEMLANE, that is a self-management tool. It's a great partner of ours that helps you accrue those hours. So, anyways, Steve, anything else you want to comment on that as well?
You mentioned something about banking depreciation depreciation benefits. That certainly makes sense. It just helps with your planning. If you're sitting with a carry forward of $100,000 in bonus depreciation, it can help you plan for the future years. So doing cost segregation, you're not going to lose it. You're just going to carry forward till you can use it, which makes good sense.
Yeah. So we're recording this shortly after, July 4th. On July 4th, Trump signed the bill. And we know that, so this obviously goes in effect, and it's retroactive to January 20th. If you already bought a property this year, but do not be one of these people that tries to apply this strategy in Q4 of this year. Be proactive to close properties sooner. That gives you more time that you've owned them throughout the year, more time that you can accrue management hours, to work towards that. It's just better to own them sooner during the year you put into service, to have more time where you own the property. So if this is something you've been waiting for or been thinking about, I think now is the perfect time to do it, and sooner is better than later. That's just my recommendation from personal experience too. No, it's never fun trying to close a property in Q4 and then something's delayed and whatever. But
Steve, whenever we talked and you did my cost segs, you actually recommended that I not do some on some of my properties. Can you tell people in general, obviously this will be property dependent, in general, are there property types that don't make as much sense to do a cost segregation on?
Well, it's not necessarily property type. It's more the value. If you bought something I had a guy the other day that had like 4 properties. Their highest was like $65,000. The lowest was 20-something thousand. The math just doesn't work typically on that value. I'll do an estimate for them and show them what it could be, but it typically doesn't work. So value is anything 100 and over typically will work well for you. When you get to lower values, probably not. Or if you've owned it, for 20 years and you've already taken most of your depreciation, probably doesn't make sense. But I'll still do an estimate, but you've already taken 20 of the 27.5 years. you've gone past the 15 and the 5 already. So that wouldn't make sense. Those are the reasons, how long you've owned it and and values that you may not want to do that.
I would
just still do an estimate.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to get an estimate. It's like another data point that just helps you make a more informed decision. And I will say, if you're working with Steve, that he's very conservative in his estimates, but usually my studies come in, not to promise anyone anything, but usually my studies are coming in 5 to 10% higher than the estimate, but at least gives you a baseline of like a very conservative estimate of what the property would be, what type of a depreciation you'd be able to see or accelerate on that asset. And again, napkin math for us, we typically use 30%. So you buy a $200,000 property, that could be a $60,000, or more, possibly more, deduction for that year. Again, that $200,000 property, you could use. Would I do my math right? $200,000, 60. So on 20, but that's 20% down would be $40,000, right? So you could put $40,000 or use one of these creative loan strategies or get cash back from the lender where you're technically $20K in, you get $60K deduction. Like there's a high likelihood with this that you get at or more than your down payment back. So it's like a free property. So that's the way I look at it. And that's happened for me multiple times. Again, super, super good advantage for investors that everyone needs to be aware of and think about applying to your strategy. Let's talk, Steve, about what a cost segregation study is. So it's an engineered report. You've done studies for me on commercial retail centers. You've done them on industrial properties, short-term rentals that I own. I'm going to have you come out this year to do it on a ranch we just bought. But they can be on all types of assets. You've obviously done them for a lot of single-family houses that I purchased throughout the country as well. But on those particular assets, typically you don't have an engineer actually flying out to the property. It's a much simpler, easier process where you get the closing statement. You ideally get some plans for the house, and they can do an estimate based on that. And it's very easy if it's new construction because you should have everything that's right there. But could you walk us through the process of what it looks like to do a cost seg on, say, your average $300,000 single family that a lot of our investors are acquiring, as well as what are typical costs for cost segs?
Sure. On residential, when you're 300,000 below, when you're buying a $3 million commercial property or $2 million, I mean, we do a physical study. We go to the property, and that just runs the cost up because there's cost involved in that. But we're charging $1,875 currently for a residential. We do a virtual study. The audit technique guide the IRS has set out for this says you have to do a site visit, but it doesn't specify virtual or physical. And there's so many tools available today through Google Earth, the appraisal. If you have an appraisal, I get a lot of data from the appraisal, photos from the property. We're able to do a virtual tour pretty easy from my desktop, which helps me keep the cost down. So our residential, they're $1,875 per property currently, and that's very cost effective. If you're saving $20,000 in taxes and you're spending a couple $1,000, it's a 10-to-1. Usually makes no sense. It usually makes easy sense to do.
Well, that's a tax deduction as well. And we're not here to just promote Steve. We like Steve because we personally use them, but we're promoting the education, right, and promoting learning about the process. The other thing I'd like to mention that's important to know is the study itself. Like when you buy the property and when you put it into service is a key date. You do not have to have the study done during the calendar year. You do have to have the study done prior to filing your taxes. So whether that's April or October next year, or if you extend, you can do the study next year. You don't have to pay for it and do it this year. The study, it should be a tax deduction more than likely as well. But the most important thing to focus on is buying the property in this calendar year and putting it into service. And like I said, sooner in the year is better than later, in my opinion. The other thing is, Steve, if this were to be audited, which, can happen, I have yet to see with any, not myself or any of our investor community, but if you were to be audited, you guys also defend the study, correct?
We do. And it's an engineered based study. So our software, we document everything. You get an Excel spreadsheet along with the study that shows the components and how we broke them down. And so the question might be from an IRS agent, how did you arrive at this number? We can go right back through our software and show how we arrived at it based on the data and the software program that we use.
I mean, these are lengthy reports. You're itemizing all the things in the house because the reality is not everything in the house is going to last 27 and a half years. So
Right.
majority or a large portion of those items will fall into the 5 and the 15-year category.
Cool.
So this is a strategy that Adam and I have both applied. I mean, obviously, so is Steve, and as he's a real estate investor and developer. So this is something that's been extremely powerful. Most of our audience have heard about this or even applied the strategy. It can be extremely beneficial. Again, if you buy, say, $1 million worth of real estate, that could be $1 million property. That could be $200,000 properties, however the math works out. Napkin math, get an actual estimate from Steve, but napkin math, say 30% of that. So $300,000 deduction, that is dramatic. And that could, if you're filing joint with a spouse, like that's an immediate $300,000 deduction that you can take in that year. If that wipes out all your taxes, because you made $200,000 that year, great. You have $100,000 carry forward into next year and it rolls forward. So, I mean, it makes sense. This allows you to be really strategic and do some tax banking and be very strategic, probably for the next 10 plus years of your career and your investing. And there's a lot of creative ways where you can, again, buy properties the normal way, 20% down, or you buy with less. You buy a second home. And rent it out. As Steve, you mentioned, you guys got a lake property. I mean, you could put 10% down on that. We have lenders that go down to 5% on. There's builders that will give credits back. You could do 0% down. So this is really, really powerful, guys. Adam, what else am I missing that we need to cover?
I think we covered just about everything. So if you want to find out more about this, head on over to renttoretirement.com and schedule an appointment to talk to one of our strategists. We can give you Steve's contact information right there at renttoretirement.com. You can also see the inventory that you can buy to get these cost segs done whenever it's your time, as we'll say. So just head on over to Rent to Retirement to do that. If you have any questions you want us to answer, or if you have any questions you want us to pass along to Steve, just email podcast at Rent to Retirement. That's podcast at renttoretirement.com. Really appreciate the time y'all spent educating yourselves today on how to avoid paying taxes. We'll talk to you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. Check out some of our other videos, like this one, or this one here.